February 27th to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
You gotta call the roll first.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
Fire evacuation. In case of a fire, there's two ways to exit. The chambers, the doors behind you are to the right, my left. Go out those doors, go down the exit and away from the building. Ms. Secretary, roll call, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. Terrence Lynch.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella is here. Frank Alimo is absent. Joseph Muley.
Here.
Kenneth Helinski.
Here.
Vinnie Grillo is absent. Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
And Walter Crizel.
Here.
At this time, I'm going to seat both alternates, Mr. Crizel and Mr. D'Antonio, for the entirety of the meeting. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of February 13th.
Second.
Any changes, concerns, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. No town attorney report, no zoning enforcement report. At this time, anyone in the audience is welcome with any concerns or comments or opinions relating to planning and zoning, as long as it's not anything on our agenda. Anyone? Anyone? Seeing no one? Close from public participation. No bond releases. New public hearings, PH 3114MA. Ms. Secretary?
Yes, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearings at the regular meeting of Thursday, February 27, 2025, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. PH number 3114MA, 14 and 20 Park Street, 47 and 51 Oak Street. Application for zone change, request for a change from residential 33 to industrial 1, CT 53 RE LLC, applicant CT 53 RE LLC, owner of 14 and 20 Park Street and 47 Oak Street. Dina and Andrew LLC, owner of 51 Oak Street, I-1 zones.
Okay, is the applicant present? Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Tim Hool. I am a civil engineer from BL Companies, here to represent the applicant. My address for the record is 100 Constitution Plaza in Hartford. So we are here tonight.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Is that better? Okay. What was that?
It's on.
As I mentioned, Tim Hool from BL Companies here to represent the applicant, CT53RE LLC. I will pull up a plan here. So we are here tonight to propose a zone change of, it's 4 total parcels located northwest of the intersection of Park Street and Oak Street. So the plan that I have up right now shows the existing zoning in this area. But before I get into that, I'll just do a very quick overview. So CT53RE is the property owner entity for Karis Reels. Karis Reels has been here in Enfield under their current name and a previous entity of Bridge Manufacturing going back decades, very, very long time, yes. They've owned a number of these parcels here, kind of in this corner, for again a long time, for a number of these parcels dating back decades as well. Caris and formerly Bridge have gotten to a point where their existing facility, portions of it date back to World War II era, if not earlier, and the facility is largely non-functional for them. They're looking to expand and grow, but they want to stay here in Enfield. And that's part of the reason over time they've gradually purchased up some of these properties as they have become available. And now they're looking to develop a new facility, and hence the application for the zone change. They want to stay here in this corner. So on the screen here, I will kind of point out a couple of parcels. So their existing parcel is this one down here. The street address is 11 Randolph Street. That's where their manufacturing facility is located. It's in the I-1 zone. The areas we are looking to rezone are these 4 parcels up here. They are in white, which is the R33 zone currently. It's the 4 parcels are 14 and 20 Park Street, which are the 2 larger parcels kind of on the northern edge of the plan here, and 47 and 51 Oak Street, which are these 2 parcels, the smaller parcels down here immediately fronting Oak Street. In total, it's roughly 17 acres. The 2 parcels on Park are 9 acres and 6.5 acres, and then the ones on Oak Street are 0.3 and 0.7 acres in total. So coming up to the total of around 17 acres. Current uses on these properties, the 2 Oak Street properties contain residential. 47 has a single-family dwelling. 51 Oak has a duplex on it. 20 Park Street is primarily vacant for the majority of it, with the northern end having a small agricultural area that's been used extensively for tobacco over the years. And 14 Park Street, which is the one closer to Park Street, that property is essentially all agricultural land currently, also has been used primarily for growing of tobacco. Surrounding zones, as you can see on the map, so we have R33 to the east across Park Street. There's R33 to the north as well. Both to the north and the east are agricultural uses currently. To this northwest corner is R33 zone, but it is town-owned open space. Looking to the west, this larger parcel over here is industrial zone owned by Caris Reels under CT 53 RE. There's a smaller parcel here to the west as well within the industrial zone that is currently owned by Hazardville Water Company. And then to the south is Oak Street, and then across Oak Street, it's all industrial property. The immediately abutting properties across the street are owned by CT 53 RE as well. The dashed line that we show around here, the kind of the more bold line, that is a 500-foot radius from around the properties we are proposing to rezone here. It's hard to see on this plan, but we do show all the property owner information within that 500-foot radius. So I'll open up now the proposed map. So as you can see, we're looking at the same 4 parcels in total that have changed. That's these 4 kind of in the center of the plan here. Everything else remains the same. The big differentiation here is we changed the color to represent the change to the industrial 1 zone to match the surrounding industrial areas to the west and to the south. So overall, the goal here, as mentioned in our narrative in the application, is to unify an industrial area here. It's kind of a little broken up with the street in the middle, but to unify this corner and expand the industrial zone out to Park Street. The goal is for Karis Reels to retain ownership of this. As I mentioned, they need to expand. They would like to, if approved, they would like to turn around and begin immediately working on design for a proposed facility to be located primarily on these parcels that are proposed for rezoning. It's not something, they're not a developer. They don't want to spin this around and sell it off. They want to stay here. This is the property they've identified they would like to retain long term. As a part of this application, we did review this proposed change in relation to the plan of conservation and development. And there's a couple of key areas I would like to point out on where we feel this is in compliance with that and potentially provide some net improvements for this specific area in the long term. First, I mentioned, I believe it falls potentially under Chapter 6 of the POCD, with provisions to retain existing businesses and promote businesses coming to Enfield. As I mentioned, Karis wants to stay here long-term. They've been here for a number of years. They have employees that live in Enfield and the immediately surrounding areas. So this is a step that they need to take in order to stay here and keep those employees here, keep the jobs here. There is a provision in there for retention of farmland. We did look into that. However, one piece of our project here for BL Companies and Karis Reels was to investigate the soil conditions on site. Knowing that it's primarily agricultural land on 14 Park and a portion of 20 Park Street, we did do some environmental soil testing here, and we found elevated levels of pesticides. Not surprising given the historic use. But what that means long-term is those, the soils in those farmland areas are not suitable for growing any produce, something that can be consumed by people. It's just the pesticide levels are too high. It would transfer into the food products and then be unsafe for consumption. So part of the benefit here, if the zone change were to be approved, is that any development that comes through would have to comply with regulations to properly manage and either cap those soils in place or remove and dispose of them off-site. So it would become a much more controlled environment where those soils are not subject to migration, potentially off-site or to any other uses nearby that could be used for food consumption. Similarly, in terms of natural resources, we looked into other items like stormwater management and erosion control closely tied together. The sites currently right now don't have any formal stormwater management. It is farmland on a portion of it, a little bit of open grassland and some gravel areas. When the farmland is tilled, it's open, it's exposed for a period of time. There's no formal stormwater, so any heavy rains will wash silt and sediments potentially from that farm area, migrating some of those contaminated soils down to, there's actually a small, like a farm pond kind of located right on the property line between, it's 20 Park and I believe that's 20 Oak Street. So it washes those contaminants into an existing wetland area. Any project that would be coming up, if this zone change were approved, would have to comply with the latest state stormwater guidelines, which include provisions for reducing peak runoff, stormwater quality improvements, things of that nature. So the zone change as a whole and any potential project coming downstream of that would represent a net improvement in stormwater quality to help capture any of that water and have formal treatment, but also prevent any of the contaminated, the pesticide-laden soils from being washed downstream into a wetland resource area. We also, as a part of the project, would be bringing in more perennial plantings than what is there today. Currently, it's farmland and unused open space. And I mean open space in terms of like fields, open area, not deeded or conservation open space. But as a part of the zone change and a project coming forward, obviously there's a portion to the north and the east that abuts residential. So any project that comes forward would have to comply with the zoning regulations in full, but specifically in terms of vegetation with the screening requirements, the buffering requirements from industrial to residential. As a part of that, there's a number of trees and shrubs. By our rough estimation, it would be somewhere between 100 and 200 trees and somewhere in the 300 to 500 shrubs that would need to be installed for those buffering requirements. Pretty much all of that would be new permanent vegetation. There really isn't much out there. There's a couple of trees in the yards of the two residential properties. There's not much else on this property today. So all of that buffering requirements would be a net improvement in long-term vegetation. You know, the agricultural field does provide some benefit, but that's for a few months out of the year. It's tilled. There may be a cover crop, but it's not providing much long-term benefit. And then lastly, as I mentioned, with the pesticide-laden soils, that would be capped as a part of the project or, like I mentioned, disposed of off-site. As far as a cap goes, typically for these kinds of sites, what's seen is those soils either need to be buried under paved areas so they are permanently stabilized and water can't migrate them off-site, or they are reused on-site but have like a clean topsoil layer applied above so that in the event of heavy rains, they also cannot migrate. So it's essentially locking it into place so it doesn't have the ability to migrate. So with that, I guess I would open it up for any questions.
Staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everybody. I believe Tim Huell kind of summarized the application very well. I did write a memo for the proposed zone change tonight. This location is right above the Hazardville Historic District. It is currently industrial with the proposal for the surrounding properties to be zoned from R33, which is residential, to Industrial 1. Karis Reels is wishing to expand. You have to make a POCD finding about whether or not the commission believes the proposed zoning map amendment satisfies the plan of conservation development. There were no departmental comments. We did receive, hang on a second. Actually, scratch that. I did have two following site-specific conditions, where one, all the subject parcels shall be merged prior to seeking development application, and two, the existing residential structures shall be demolished, and the existing residential uses will be abandoned upon filing a statement on the land records. And then the effective date would be after the posting of the legal action ad and posting with the town clerk, should the commission wish to take action tonight. I don't have any more further comments. Thank you.
Any questions? Walter? Joe? Terrence? Ken?
Yeah, I have a question. You talked about jobs. Are you going to be adding any jobs as a result of this expansion of facility? If so,
mean-
maybe how many,
Okay.
or not sure?
You
you
need
know?
me to talk in the mic?
Yeah, and name and address, please.
Right. I'm Dave Sunderland. I'm the Vice President of Manufacturing for Karis Reels.
Sure.
Nice to be with you tonight. Thank you for having us. So we see this as a shift currently. I think our current operations will be close to what we have in the existing building, and the current number of employees will similarly be close to what we have in the existing building. This new operation would give us the ability to expand in the future if the business dictated that. But right now, I think it's an even swap.
Okay, and what is the nature of the new operation? Is it similar to what you do now? Are you modernizing?
Exactly. It's similar to what we do now. We're making the same products that we are making in the current building, but with new, more automated equipment, definitely more consistent from a quality standpoint, and the improvement from a safety standpoint is there as well. We're an employee-owned company, and we take that very seriously, and certainly there's limitations that we have with the equipment that we have in the building itself, to get to where we need to get. It's really wasn't feasible to do so. So that's why we started looking at this option.
Okay, thank you.
John?
I have no comments.
Christian?
I mean, I guess we'll see if any members of the public want to speak. But did you guys have any conversations with the neighbors before you came to us today?
Yes, we actually had a meeting invite to the public. We reached out through mailing and invited the communities, essentially the residential areas surrounding. So I believe, I'm having a hard time reading. I believe that's South Meadow Lane, Grove Street, Park Street, in this immediate vicinity, and Randolph Street. So we reached out, I think it was somewhere around 75 different property owners in the area. And we had a meeting at the library, I believe that was 3 weeks ago?
Probably 3.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago.
It was about 3 weeks ago.
You mind elaborating on any feedback you got or anything?
Sure. So as a part of that, we mentioned the zone change, but we also wanted to talk a little bit about the long-term vision, because we know that's what everyone in the area is interested in. And most of the comments and questions were about what that long-term project looks like. So there were a lot of questions on, the operation, what will the neighbors see of the property, things like that. And we did assure that there's a zoning protection there for the buffering and screening that'll help with vision. It's going to be a new facility, so it'll have the benefits of being energy efficient, and kind of consolidated to one area. So the majority of the comments were around kind of the day-to-day operations of the facility and what that looks like. There were also some of the environmental items that I kind of mentioned with the soils and the stormwater, things of that nature.
Oh, great. Yeah, I mean, I can see, I mean, you mentioned it before about the buffer, the 100-foot buffer would be required adjacent to residential. So there would arguably be more buffer than there is today, even. So definitely more substantial than farmland. So I presume that was taken positively if
Yes.
that came up? Okay,
Yes.
great, thanks.
All set? Okay.
One
Yep,
quick one.
Go ahead.
So if you build a new facility, what's happening with the old?
Sure.
So we have a few different operations that we do in the old building now, and some of those will continue in the event that we build this new building. We've developed a part of our business that recycles reels from the field more than once. So if we can get them back, which is kind of the trick to the thing, we can fix whatever's broken at them and send them back out. It's a very green option. It is kind of silly to take such devices as a reel that's that big and use it only once. So that's a growing part of our business, and we plan to continue to do that in that existing facility primarily. There'll be more space to do other things in the future, certainly, and there's certainly warehouse space there that we'll continue to take advantage of. But for the most part, it'll be a recycling facility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All set. I'm going to open it up to the public, because we do have a couple of people that do want to participate. So I'm going to ask you to have a seat and Richard Senna? Oh, okay. No, well, you put your name down. You got to understand. I thought you were just hired to pass the mic. It's okay. I'm sorry. Bob Figelli? I hope I said it right. Okay, sorry. Name and address, please, for the record.
Sure. Bob Fagella, 10 Grove Street. In general, I'm in favor of the zone change. Karis Reel, Bridge before them, and Hasville Bobbin Company before Bridge. Been there, I think, since 1860s, so it's been there forever. And I've actually lived there my whole life on Grove Street. I have a couple of questions. One was merging of the properties. Will it be merging the current facilities off of Oak Street, or just the new properties?
Sir,
And I
that'll
know-
be addressed.
That'll be addressed afterward. My other concern, and I know it can't be part of the zone change, but will there be a site plan approval when it does come back, or will this just be a administrative approval of the new facility whenever it is proposed? The reason I bring this up is I am concerned, actually, back in approximately 1970, bridge manufacturing at the time removed the buffer between Grove Street and their current facility. Their new facility, what they're proposing, would be basically as far away from that area as possible. And you know, in the back corners where everything gets thrown away or put away and out of sight, out of mind. And there's no buffer there now. I would like to be considered, when the site plan comes up, that at least a partial buffer be reinstalled along the Grove Street, Oak Street corner. I know right behind Grove Street, it's not practical to put a buffer, and I don't think any of the neighbors are asking for that. But I know all the neighbors are very concerned about that corner. And those are my only comments.
Okay, thank you. Applicant, would you like to come up and address the concerns?
Sure. So I believe if I got the two questions specifically, the merging of the lots, I know that was a condition that staff has written in. Specifically, you know, what we're here to discuss are the lots subject to the zone change, and I know those specifically will be addressed by the comment. As far as what that looks like for the full project, I assume it would be part of the project if development does expand to include other lots. That would most likely, I'm assuming from staff, be a recommendation through the site plan or special permit process to all be merged. But I know specifically at this time, it's the 4 lots we're looking to change the zone for. And then regarding the second question for site plan approval, we are expecting to come back for site plan approval and potentially special permit. But that will be coming back for another full review in front of the commission, and obviously be open for public input and comment as well. And the buffer along Grove Street, that's something that was mentioned in the public information session that we had, and that's something we are looking into, but that's part of the full development project. You know, not something I believe comes into play necessarily for the zone change, but we are looking into our options for buffering as a whole for this project for the full development.
Okay. Any other comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may chime in, just to help the resident and his concerns. So in the zoning regulations, there are protective zoning buffers because this industrial facility directly abuts industrial, not only adjacent, but also across the street. There are 2 types of buffers that will come into play when they make application. First one being directly abutting is typically 100 feet deep, and then ones across the street are usually 50 feet deep. So until they make application, we'll be able to really analyze the buffers and see what their proposed plantings are. In terms of the merge, it's just typical of developers when they're developing multiple parcels to merge them to become one. It should be done prior to making an application for development, but it can happen at either stage. But you know, prior is usually better because then it makes it an easier process going forward for when they do development, not having to worry about setbacks and multiple lot lines. So there definitely will be protective buffers from the industrial uses in the residential neighborhoods surrounding.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the public? You're all set? Honest? Go ahead. Name and address.
Richard Case of Avon.
Thank you.
There's some issues relative to the Grove Street, but which we're aware of. One of them is that if you look at the northwest corner of of our property, which is 20 Oak, is a wetland, and there's a one of the issues that we have to deal with is the overflow of the water, which occurs in the spring, comes into our pond, and so that there are issues we have to deal with, as Mr. Hool, Tim explained about water flow and potential contamination. And the other thing is that it's very interesting. There's along that edge, but we are looking into the way we would buffer that area. I know that was expressed at the meeting by the people from Grove Street that were there. This company has had a history of doing things in the proper way, as you know, and they're going to continue to do that.
Thank you. Okay, I still have to open it back up to the public if anyone would like to come forward at this time. Sir? So I'm going to ask you to have a seat. Name and address for the record, please.
Alfred Cushane, 460 Hazard Avenue. I lived in Hazardville section right around Bridge, well, at the time, Bridge Manufacturing. And I had relatives work there, and my father retired from that place, so I'd be very much with the zone change. I'd really like to see it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Roll call, please. Just so that we can close it. Yeah, please.
Yes, Linda DeGray,
4.
Ken Helinski,
4.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
4.
Walter Crizzell,
4.
and John Petronella is 4.
Okay, any discussion on this application? Yes, go ahead.
I believe this is a win-win for the town, keeping a business in town that's been here with the town's grown with the town. And I think it's just, like I said, win-win. We're going to improve the area and everything, so
Okay.
I'm all for it.
Anyone else?
I got a quick question regarding they had mentioned the buffer along Grove Street. That was.
I'm sorry, you've closed the public hearing, so you
Yeah.
can ask any more questions.
It's all-
A question to the staff.
Okay.
Okay.
Through the chair. That was, we were told, rescinded, and do we have authority when that comes back in to put that back in or to reinstate it? Or?
Yeah, so when they make application, the regulations apply all over again.
Okay.
Sometimes when there's a complaint, say for example, a parking lot where the painting has been worn off and there's a complaint, we would enforce them to come back into compliance with the original approval for that site. So in this case, when they come in, they will be required to do the buffer all over again for the entire development, all the lots included, including the buffers that are missing.
Yeah. Okay. And also, I just want to say that I certainly can support this application, given the surrounding areas and so forth. I think it's well suited, and I certainly don't have any issues with it. Thank you.
Okay. Christian?
I concur with that. I think it's I think it's sensible. It very much fits within the industrial zone. I think the trade-off is, very almost certainly based on what they're saying, losing farmland, which is something that we should be conscious of. But I think it makes sense in this application, and so I would be supportive of it. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with all the comments. I think it's a good addition to the community and long-term company. My neighbor worked for your company for many years, and so and you've been a good community member too. So I think I'd be in favor of this.
Terrence?
I would just agree with all, with all the comments we've heard. I think it's a good addition to help put all the zoning together. And we've talked about spot zoning, we've talked about nonconformances, we've talked about everything. This allows us to say, okay, this whole section now is the same zone, and I think that's important, so I'm in favor of this.
Joe?
I agree. I think it's a good move, and it's a company that the town's been built around, really. They've been here longer than a lot of companies, and it's manufacturing that we want to keep. So, yeah, I agree.
Kind of have to agree. The company's been here for over 100 years, and they've been a good partner to the community. So I will entertain a motion, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing number 3114MA, 14 and 20 Park Street and 47 and 51 Oak Street, application for zone change request to change from residential 33 to industrial 1, CT53RE LLC applicant, CT53RE LLC owner of 14 and 20 Park Street and 47 Oak Street, Deanna and Andrew LLC owner of 51 Oak Street, I-1 zones, with the following site-specific conditions: that all of the subject parcels shall be merged prior to seeking development applications, and number 2, the existing residential structure shall be demolished, and the existing residential uses will be abandoned upon filing statement onto the land records. Also, with the finding that the commission finds that the application is consistent with the current POCD and helps preserve historic businesses.
Second.
Wait, effective date?
Yes, the effective date is, as stated, the zoning map amendment shall be effective after the posting of the legal action ad and subject to the approval map amendment being posted with the Enfield Town Clerk.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Kenneth Helinski,
4.
Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
4.
Walter Krizel,
4.
and John Petronella is 4.
Well, thank you,
7-0.
gentlemen.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Look forward to your expansion. Okay. Ms. Secretary.
I guess that was a long time ago.
Okay, Ms. Secretary, public hearing 3115ZA, when you're ready.
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearings at their regular meeting Thursday, February 27, 2025. At 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers. Oops. I'll start again. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearings at their regular meeting on Thursday, February 27th at 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing number 3115ZA, application for text amendment proposing to eliminate section 4.10.2, seller and foundation requirements, WE Acquisitions LLC applicant.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome. Name
Yes.
and address.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Carl Landolina, Fahey and Landolina, and 487 Spring Street, Windsor Locks, representing the applicant WE Acquisitions LLC. I'm joined to my right by Ted DeSantos. He's a senior vice president of the applicant, as well as which is a subsidiary of the Winstanley Enterprises Corporations. Winstanley is also in the business of residential projects, and they have a vision perhaps to do a project here in Enfield. And a first step to doing that project is to acquire a piece of property in Enfield, talk to you about the zone change, and we'll call it build or construct or erect a single-family home on a lot they have under contract now at 67 Middle Road. So that gives them standing to bring this application. The type of housing that they're proposing is, I guess I'll call it a manufactured type of house. It's done in a factory. It's built floor to ceiling, finished grades. I've finished, everything is in there. It's trucked over onto a site and then seamed together and placed onto a site. As I say, they have a site under contract on Middle Road to do one house, and if it works out, they have a vision of doing a larger project. When we were looking at the property on Middle Road and the type of housing that they're considering, the type of housing does not lend itself to having a foundation and basement or cellar under it. Part of the manufacturing process is that when it's finished at the factory and placed on a truck, the floors are in, everything is in. So typically, this type of housing would be placed above a slab foundation, and your regulations do not allow for that. Specifically, your section, I believe it's 410, does not, it provides that all residential structures except multifamily houses have a cellar, and there's some provisions for the depth of that cellar and so on and so forth. So we had initially talked about trying to get a variance for this particular lot. This is not really that important. There are some high water tables there, but you know, if the vision is to see if this as a test project works in Enfield and is a desirable type of housing, then they want to go into do a larger project, and you know, that wouldn't work long term for whatever site was picked or chosen to do the larger project on. So after discussing it with staff and the pros and cons of all this, and then learning that you had discussed, I guess, as part of your second stage of your POCD, which is to go through your regulations and look at different sections that could be modified, amended, or created, or deleted to implement those goals as stated in your plan of conservation and development. We became aware that this was one of the sections that you had called out for discussion. And I believe that took place maybe November 12th, if I'm not mistaken, at a workshop, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in
I looked for
there.
the minutes and there were none, so because it was a workshop, you know. But in any event, so the plan would be to, at this point, ask you to delete the entire section. We believe that in today's economic climate, and it's unnecessary, we think. I'm sure that's been in there before any of us probably, you know, became aware that was there. I guess in 40 or 50 years, at least, it's been there in prior versions of the regulations. And I think it's somewhat outdated, but that's, you know, your call. And we believe that the building code would handle that kind of issue, generally speaking. If we can comply with the building code, which all of the housing will, maybe that'll be sufficient. You can agree or disagree. But so what I have placed in front of you are, and I think the first time I got it the way you might want to see it, where I numbered the pages myself, because a lot of times I'd give you a handout and I'd say page 67, there was only 20 pages, and we'd all be scratching our head and trying to find it. So rather than go through it in any detail, these are 21 pages pulled out of, I can see now that at least my copy has been misnumbered or misordered. I'll have to talk to my secretary.
Would you like a copy?
No, I
with the
have
right
more.
numbers?
So they're
Okay.
correctly numbered in your world?
Yeah.
We think so.
Perfect, okay. That means I did this myself, so I can't blame anybody but myself. Yeah. So in any event, I pulled out 21 pages that talk about housing, and I'm not going to go through them. You guys worked on this POCD for long enough, and and you had the services of Goldman and York, and Don Poland, who's one of the leading experts of POC development in the state of Connecticut. So, but I think that, and as staff mentioned to you, and anyway, most of you have been here long enough to know that when you do either a zone change or a text amendment, you must find it's consistent, not that it conforms or is in compliance with, but consistent with the plan of conservation and development. So I've chosen, out of the 100 pages of the POCD, 21 pages, I think that lend itself to establishing that consistency. Essentially, your POCD talks about the high costs of development, for residential especially, and it talks about the need for a diverse housing stock, and there's sort of this, my reading of the POCD, there's sort of this like middle area, this soft spot, I think the town has done a great job, and I've been coming here for 30 years or so, a great job of allowing multifamily housing, which Don Poland pointed out and you accepted, I think, as truism, that there's a need for apartments and to support the retail, because your retail is your main economic driver for the town of Enfield. But I think he points out there's sort of a soft spot in the middle for middle-income folks. You've got plenty of affordable housing, so you're not subject to 8-30G. You've got now large luxury apartments to kind of hit that higher-end spot, but there's sort of a soft spot in the market to try to keep the costs of middle-income housing, affordable. Someone told me that there was a house or something that sold for over $600,000 or something recently in Enfield. So like every area, the housing market has gone sort of out of reach for the middle folks. So I think, deleting this section, I think, will help not only this client build the kind of housing, workforce housing that they envision for the town, but other developers as well, in making new housing a little bit more affordable.
Okay.
That's really all I have.
Okay. Georgie?
That's mine.
Sorry. Lori? You're up.
Thank you for that, Carl.
Welcome.
Yes, so, yes, our planning strategies basically include many housing requirements and to vary our housing, diversify, try to create more affordable, or more houses that are affordable. Not affordable housing, but more houses that are affordable to the general public. So we did discuss this in one of our workshops on November 12th, and basically the question from staff is, how is this a planning and zoning requirement rather than a building requirement? So there was always that question. There are a lot of properties in town that do have high water tables. A lot of our subdivisions are built in them, and they have water in their basements. So that would be one solution for those areas. This will make these houses more affordable. And the one thing that I did thought about was considering requiring a frost wall with a slab. And we sort of talked about that, and because there's a concern of having the utilities in the foundation, and then if there's an issue, then you have to dig up your foundation. So I'm not sure if that's something that you want to consider. I do want you to realize that we did get a referral comment from CROG, which basically found no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies or the concerns of neighboring towns. Staff commends this effort to allow for a diversity of housing choice, which aligns with the 2024 Regional Plan of Conservation and Development. We also received a letter in support from Reinhard von Hollander on Wednesday, 2/26. And in short, it says, "Good morning, Georgie. As you know, I've enjoyed being a builder-developer in Enfield since the early 90s. I am writing today to offer my support of the basement requirement as being revised and proposed by the P&C department. I have always felt that the section related to the basement requirements needed to be modernized for today's housing. I look forward to taking advantage of section 4.10.2 as proposed and revised. Best, Reinhard von Hollander." And I will say that this has been an issue for the zoning officer, and especially when it comes to split house. What am I?
Split level.
Split level. I'm missing a word here. Split level house. So because basically it creates a basement but isn't a basement. So there's been like, well, you're supposed to have a basement underneath that bottom floor, but we've just been calling that bottom floor the basement. But it doesn't quite fit the regulation as it stands. So, quite honestly, it actually might make things easier for staff as well. And I think that's about it. I would just also say we could have the effective date on March 3rd, 2024, after the legal notice.
Madam Chair, we have a response as far as the frost wall is concerned. Would you like to hear that now?
Please.
Okay. So I'm going to let Mr. DeSantos. I think that's
I'll lean in.
That's all right.
Good evening. Ted DeSantos of 33 Dennison Ridge Drive in Manchester, Connecticut. I work on the development team at Winstanley Enterprises. The Workforce Housing Initiative is my project, and I can tell you that the Winstanleys have been working for close to a year researching, trying to find a way to construct workforce housing here in the state of Connecticut. So if you've been following the press, this is a big issue here in the state and New England in general. And so we've found a first piece of property where we'd like to do a test case here in town, as Carl said. So just to get to the discussion of whether the slab on grade would have a frost wall, I can tell you that these manufactured homes, the load of the home is distributed across the slab in a way that a stick-built home is not. So a stick-built home bears on the exterior foundation walls and usually a beam with lolly columns down the middle and the joist span to that. With a manufactured home, it's all constructed on 3 I-beams for each of the 2 halves that are delivered to the site and then joined together. So the supports are running down those I-beams, not at the exterior of the home. And so when you think about where these manufactured homes are being constructed now, there are thousands of these homes that are going in cold weather states like New York, and they're building them with slab on grade. It is a frost protected slab on grade, meaning it is both insulated, and then the nature of these homes, there's a conditioned crawl space, semi-conditioned crawl space between the slab and the floor of the house. And so because you've got that semi-conditioned, because you're insulating and haunching the sides of the slab down about 12 inches, you don't need that full 3.5-foot frost wall going down below the level of frost. And this is compliant with the International Building Code, the current edition, State of Connecticut Building Code, and it would be something that your building department would want to take a good look at. But we've spent a lot of time looking at this issue. The reason we'd prefer not to construct frost walls is it's adding cost, and we would say unnecessary cost, because structurally we can support these homes and have a frost-protected slab without that frost wall.
I'm usually referred to the rest of the guys first, but I have this question. I got to get it out. That's your manufacturing, and we have to look at all manufacturing. So I would have a concern that if we don't consider this having frost wall is that you're constructing these manufactured homes one way, if that's the way it's done across the industry, and if not, then we get a homeowner that doesn't quite get the construction that you're offering. So I guess that is a concern for me.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'll
Please.
just, respond. So, through the building permit process, you would have a requirement that home support, foundation, or slab should be frost protected. And there's different ways you could do that. You can do it with a frost wall or the frost protected slab, like what I'm saying, and that could be up to the building department to approve that building permit.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I have some comments. I went and did some research on slabs versus full basements and half basements, crawl spaces. Yeah, the benefits of the slab is well known. Okay, it's much lower cost. It's low maintenance. It's very strong. There are no seams or cold joints in the slab. It's time saving, faster completion of the structure when you're building it. And also ground level accessibility, because the house is lower. You don't have the basement showing just below the house. So that's one of the benefits. And then there are also disadvantages to that. One of the disadvantages is there's more floor space required for the HVAC systems. You have no cellar to put your furnace in or your HVAC equipment. So now you need a storage room, a utility room, whatever you want to call it. That has to be built into the house, so causing more use of space on the first floor. Usually the plumbing and electrical conduit are within the slab or below the slab. So as the years go by, if you need repairs to those particular items, they're very expensive, because now you have to go get into the slab somehow and replace wiring, replace plumbing, so on and so forth. Also, there can be cracks in the slab over the years, and they're expensive and disruptive to fix as part of the house. Resale value is a problem with slab homes in that if many of the homes around you have basements, people sometimes feel that buying a slab house is not a good thing. Okay, they would prefer the basement because, and the resale value would be lower than a house with a basement. And that's also due to expected maybe higher maintenance costs as the house gets older. The other thing is not all sites are suitable for slab construction. You really need level ground. You can't do it on a sloped type of lot. And then also, in addition, full basements are highly recommended for areas in the northern climates where freezing is expected, because freezing could cause a crack problem with the slab itself. Okay, so normally most houses in colder areas have full basements or even half basements. Kind of interesting, the National Association of Home Builders study found that 84% of homes in the upper Midwest has basements, but less than 1% in Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. So the warmer climates tend more towards slabs. Okay. This is a major change to our regulations. I mean, what you're asking is to just basically delete that entire regulation. I think we ought to find a different way to do this and some other method, because this regulation's been there a long time. It's a good regulation. We have a lot of basements in town. And I just think that was put there for a reason, so that we're below the frost line when we build our house and we're not going to have any structural problems due to frost. That's basically it.
Okay. Anyone else? John?
Yeah, couple of things. My feeling is that anybody who has a basement currently, it's full of stuff because people collect stuff. Anybody who doesn't have a basement wishes that they had a basement, but that's neither here nor there. But I think basements are preferred, and I think that if you're given the buyer a choice, I think that they're going to try to prefer and go with the basement. I guess if the intent is to build a development and not offer a choice and just say we're going to build 50 homes and they're all going to be all slab on grade and not offer the buyer the choice, I'm not sure that that's a reasonable way to go with things. Now you're dictating the market. You're a builder, developer. You're dictating what the market's supposed to be, not letting the market dictate itself. But again, I have no issue with lots that have a water or moisture problem with being crawl spaces or whatnot. I do see a problem. Slab on grade that is frost protected, I'm having some difficulty trying to understand how do you protect a slab that's whatever, 8 inches thick, sitting on the ground. How is it protected? But I'm sure that there's some science to it that the building departments, and as you said, that the National Building Code has accepted and so forth. Aesthetically, how slab-on grades are on how they appear on the lot, I have some concerns with based upon what we have here in town now. There's two pretty large developments, fairly large developments with slab-on grades. They're very easily spotted when you see them. They're very low to the ground. If we were to consider anything like this, I would propose that we make have something in there where the floor height at the first floor, living floor, is a minimum of, say, 28 to 30 inches above the exterior grade. That would make the house aesthetically look like the rest of the town, the rest of New England. If you have a house with a basement and one next door without one, two identical houses, there's going to be a drastic difference with one being on grade and one being with a basement that's usually stepped up. So, and I feel that, if it's a crawl space, it's going to be elevated anyway, and if it's a slab on grade, but I'm thinking of frost wall foundations where it's elevated and so forth. At least aesthetically, it's kind of going to look like the rest of the town, because that's basically what we have right now. I think, again, getting back to the high water table and moisture, obviously that is a concern where it gives people an option to build something that may be deemed unbuildable. I understand about the water problems and so forth. The other issues with building on grade or very close to grade is, with snow buildup, moisture issues with the sill plates and so forth, always a problem. Rodents getting into the houses and eating through the sills and the plates and so forth. I think So again, getting to elevating the house, the finished floor a little bit, I think is something that I would like to see considered as some sort of a dimension on there that the main floor level be placed approximately, I say, about 28 inches above slab, if that's something that would be considered. But I've spoken to some people in town that have slab-on grades or that have had slab-on grades, and that's where I get some of these concerns with as well. And me being a builder, not really residential, but I certainly can understand and relate to it. I did speak with somebody who who was putting on an addition, 26 by 20 addition, and it was going to be a frost wall. And he asked the builder how much more to go, full basement, 26 by 20, I think the addition was. And so how much to go full basement? And it was an add of $2,500. Not really a lot of money. And so he obviously went for that. That was probably about 8 to 10 years ago. Nothing very recently, but it was about $2,500 more. So, you know, there is a cost associated with it, but I don't think it's that much. I don't know. As Ken, Commissioner Helinski said, you know, there's a lot here to look at, to consider. So I just want to make sure that you know, we just don't cross off this whole thing. I think, you know, it needs a little bit more thought to it than just blank out that whole section of 4.10.2. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Joe?
I think ultimately, I agree with John. I mean, we should have some better discussion about this before we make a decision. But I think ultimately it should be left up to the homeowner, the person buying this house and piece of property. They should be given the option of, do you want to be built on a slab at X cost, or would you want to, I guess, upgrade to a full basement at this cost? I mean, you're taking away choice from the person who ultimately is paying for it. And I'm sure there's some discussions before they buy a house, there's design, what they want, or unless you're just making one, this is one house and this is all there is. But I think the homeowner should have the option, and we shouldn't just X out the whole thing. We should look at it a little more closely before we go any further.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I don't know about anybody else, but I lived in a slab house in Tennessee, and I don't here. I don't know that I would here, for a lot of reasons that have been talked about. One, I think storage was an issue. I came from Connecticut, went to Tennessee, lived there for several years. Then I moved back here. Well, when I moved to Tennessee, a lot of the storage that I had in my basement here wound up in my 2-car garage. So now I had a 1-car garage. So it's little things. I don't think they're so little, but they're little things if you look at them. A workshop in your basement, just to take care of the little things that you have to take care of. Now you got to put it in a garage or wherever, or you got to build a shed outside, which in this area, do you have to heat the shed? What do you have to do? So I tend to agree that we had a long discussion about this, and you were right, at a workshop. And there were 2 schools of thought. One, it should be a building department issue. It shouldn't be a zoning issue. The zoning issue should be, should you have single-family houses or not? Or should it be residential or whatever? And I tend to agree with that school of thought that it's a building issue. But on the other hand, I'm torn, and I have been looking at this application because I'm not sure. And I think we as a board need to have more discussion on it as to just what everybody thinks and what really makes sense. I would also like to know from staff if we took it out of the regulation and these gentlemen came in with a plan to build it, what could the building department do about it other than say, okay, it meets most of the state regulations or whatever regulations we have on building. And it's not a zoning issue, but I think I'm not going to vote to close this public hearing anyway, because I think there's too much discussion that has to come with the board here. But anyway, that's all I have to say. I'm just concerned about it.
Okay. Would you like to respond to any of these questions so far, before I open it up to the public?
Yeah, Mr. DeSantos, you'd like to speak?
Sure.
So, this is not to argue with anything that was said, because you can't argue. There lots of good points have been made. There's a lot to consider here. I was just sitting here as we were talking about southern homes versus northern homes, and having a basement or having a garage, 1 car, 2 car. I think having a diversity of housing product in a town, as it says in your POCD, is critical, particularly to young families. I'm remembering a time when we bought our first home. My kids are about 20 years old now, off to college, but when we bought our first house, we didn't have a garage. We built a shed, and the house was close to 100 years old, and the basement was wet, and we had maybe 800 or 900 square feet. And as the kids got bigger and the toys piled up in the house, that was what we could afford, and that's what we had at that time. I do think in the state of Connecticut, there's a significant need for diversity of housing product. These are beautiful new construction homes that we're proposing, and would love you to consider that as well. So,
Okay.
did you put the?
Yeah, so I've again, for the record, Carl Landolina, I've handed out one for the record, and I only had 4 copies, but you can see the product that they're proposing. But the chair is correct. I mean, just because we're going to do it a certain way doesn't mean
It's okay.
that everyone else will. So I think what I'm hearing, I think we would not ask you to close the public hearing. We'd like to have it continued. And I think probably the approach is, rather than slash and burn, is to rework the language you have, because you've carved out at least 1, maybe 2 exceptions already for different types of housing. Maybe just carve out another exception. So that would, now in this case, like for instance, I know you have active adult projects in town that are built on slabs, and your regulation says you can do that as long as there's a garage for the storage issue. Our product is going to have a stick-built garage with every home. So we have when we thought about, should we carve out an exception or just take it out, but I think at this point, we'd like to continue the matter, work on addressing your concerns, perhaps in a carve-out, and see if we can come to an agreement. And again, your concerns are all legitimate. Some of them are marketing concerns. I mean, when you go to buy a house and they're all new, the developer says, "This is what I'm building." You get 2 choices or 3 choices of homes, and that's it. If you want something else, you're going to have to go down the street and get it. So I think that part of it maybe is not that important. But let's continue the matter if you're amenable to doing that, looking at some of the concerns you all had and try to work it into a carve-out and see if you'll accept that.
Okay.
And then you can work on it, obviously, again, when you look at this section as part of your overall, change to the zoning regulations.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to the public because we
course,
do
thank
have
you.
people here. So, George Aston, I think that's what it says here. So. Okay. Name and address for the record, please.
George Austin.
Okay. That was
22
close.
Charles, right down the road here, which is actually what I'm building right now. It is a split level raised ranch, and boy, I had some really finely tuned bullet points until I heard all this discussion. But I'm going to just speak about this project instead of positing and postulating about others. On this raised ranch, the regulations, as a result of the regulations, I had to, this was a non-conforming lot, perfectly level. Perfectly level. I mean, it could have been a soccer field if it wasn't so small. And there was no need in terms of drainage, no need to alter the grade in any meaningful way, except for to comply with this regulation. Because as a result, on the first floor, or on the ground floor, on the garage floor, let's put it that way, there's a two-car garage and a master suite. I have lost, mathematically speaking, not that much square feet to foundation wall and then additional framing wall. I'm a framer by trade. But as the regulation reads, you need to have 50% or more of the habitable space to be underneath the finished grade by at least 3 feet. So when you're talking about how you're going to shoehorn as much square feet into a non-conforming lot as possible, and then you're losing inches, which then turn into feet, which then turn into square feet, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to lay out your furniture in your master bed on this ground floor. Something that seems really mundane in this conversation, when you put it on paper, becomes a real issue. It can become a real issue in a very compounding and meaningful way. I strenuously advocate. I don't think that the regulation as written could be rectified. I would, if I were a commissioner, I would strike it and just rewrite it from scratch. Because in my case, I'm talking about a raised ranch. In the applicant's case, you're talking about a whole different kind of construction. You want to go on a monolithic slab versus frost wall. You're looking at aesthetics from grade. There's a whole myriad of things to consider. But then on the inverse side, in my case, it would have been real simple to not have to comply with this regulation. Because historically, raised ranches, as much as a builder could, as much of the exterior wall that a builder could make out of concrete ends up being cheaper, historically speaking. Until the new energy codes. I'm actually a licensed building official as well. As a result of all these new building codes that we've adopted, that's no longer true. Now it's actually more expensive because you have to pour the concrete to comply with this regulation, bring up grade, which means perhaps not in my case, down the street, but in many cases you might have to bring in soil, bring in a bunch of material to bring it up to grade, or to bring the grade up to compliance, into compliance. And then furthermore, you still have to, instead of just leaving the concrete as is, or just taking a couple of 2x flat for, just so you can put some sheetrock and trim on them, now I have to frame in such a way that it can be insulated and compliant with the current energy codes. So now it's become more expensive, as everything is these days, as we all know, especially building. A very good point is letting the customer dictate what it is they want. Can I afford this? No. So then here's a slab. That's another option. My 2 cents would be maybe, although not very efficient, maybe replace this with 2 different or more kinds of regulations. One that governs a certain kind of structure, in this case mine, because this doesn't affect me at all, but I feel that strongly about it. Because I went back and forth between the zoning office, probably cost me an extra 90 days just to get things, squared away. And that's not to point fingers, but I've already incurred the expense. I'm almost ready to sheetrock, so it doesn't affect me on this project. But maybe down the road, I'm going to continue building, try to keep things affordable. Again, especially with special regard to the raised ranches, even though, notwithstanding the point I just made about affordability in terms of the concrete walls and the energy codes, they're still the most inexpensive ways of building, or I guess until the modular approach maybe. And I foresee, given, for example, the housing topic being discussed under the Gold Dome, I foresee lots of 30G. I foresee them trying to fiddle with 30G as much as possible. I foresee more applicants coming before you trying to get, perhaps trying to split bigger lots into smaller non-conforming lots just so you can get more units in, et cetera, so on and so forth. So that's why I would advocate, again, to strike this completely and maybe make 2 or more, depending on, that would apply to structure type A, B, C, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. Marianne?
Mary Ann Turner, 7 Meadow Road. I apologize, I am not completely versed on what you're doing. I only went into my office about 10 minutes ago, turned it on, and heard you talking about slab homes. I live in a slab home. I have been there for 45 years, and I would strongly advocate for putting them, if they're not in the regulation, and I apologize for not having read it, but to consider it. In the time that we have lived there, I heard some of the commentary about you have to have a mechanical room in the house. Yep, you do. It's no big deal. You actually, with the way the new furnaces are now and the way it works, it really takes up very little space. So you actually could build a smaller mechanical room today than is in my house, which is 60 plus years old. You wouldn't believe the stuff that I shove in there. One thing when you don't have a basement is you know how to use space wisely. The other thing is, yes, you're right. When we bought the house, the heat was in the slab. It isn't there any longer because, like anything else, time makes things not work. You know, those pipes started to leak. We didn't care. We just shut it off and we put an air furnace in. So we just lived with it. I'll just tell you, the other day, we just had a minor leak in our kitchen. And you may think, big deal. You're like, what did you do? Well, the plumber had to come in, and it was a copper pipe, original copper pipe in our house that had rotted, that they just came in between the wall between the kitchen and the bathroom. So when I hear that there's issues, some other great reasons I like my house, it is 100% flat when you walk in. There's no grades. You just walk straight in. And I will tell you, when we were building our second home in New Hampshire, that was something I wanted, but I couldn't have because we have a full basement. Okay, there. And I was like really complaining about it because I liked it, not having to step up or out of the house. And as you get older, I hate to say it, but I'm in that range now, that it actually is much more comfortable for the housing stock. When some people come into my neighborhood, all the houses in this Meadow Road, Weymouth Drive, Hickory are slab homes. And really and truly, I don't think anyone's really complained about it. You can have a shed in your backyard, and I do have my share. So the other thing about it, we don't have to have gutters. Why? There's no water going in my basement. So we got rid of the icing dam. So I know that I'm coming from a different perspective, having lived in such a home, but if there's a way for you to put that, I would assume that must have been in our regulations way back when, or they wouldn't have built my house, right, or my whole neighborhood. But I would strongly advise that it does work, and that even though you're, right now, if I understand the regulation right now, every home has to have a basement. Come on over, I'll show you how easy it is to live in a house without a basement. And yes, you're right, Commissioner, that when you said people who have basements put stuff in it and people who don't have basements wish they had them, my husband will tell you that he probably agrees with that in a little bit of a way. But we don't have a lot of junk. We have our neighbors who have garages, they fill it with that. If you come to my house, I don't have that. So all I'm saying is, if the opportunity is for you to open up to put slab houses, if they're not in the regulation now, to consider it, I would strongly advise. It does work, and you will find that there are people like me and others. My neighborhood does not have trouble selling. We just sold a house around the corner for $300,000, which, phew, I can't believe they sold that when we bought our house for $37,000. So anyway, thank you for the time.
Thank you. Okay. Gentlemen?
So again, thank you, Madam Chair. Carl Andolina for the record. So as I stated earlier, we would propose that you keep the public hearing open. We'll work with staff. I took some notes. I think I'm probably going to watch the video again to make sure that I get everyone's concerns, in my head when we try to redraft something, maybe a carve-out that you might find reasonable under the circumstances. So that would be my request at this point.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question
Yes.
for the applicant. What's the name of the manufacturer for this type of house?
The model that we'd like to use at the 67 Middle Road property is by Titan Homes out of New York. And Champion Builders is their affiliate that would deliver the home.
Yeah, I just may want to look up. I'm curious as to as you explained the construction, the type, and because I'm sure that they'll have details of the slab construction, and again, I'm a little bit confused at the frost protected slab. How do they accomplish that? So I just want to kind of look at that. I'm sure that they'll have details on that.
Yeah, so I
Your
think
website.
we'll probably add that as one of the points in our regulation. And yeah, if you want to see the details of that, we have them now, but we'll work that in as well.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if you got to give them to the.
Yeah, give it to staff.
to give it to
give it to
staff.
staff, I guess, and.
I can email it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
So, can you just? The next meeting is.
The next meeting is March
13th.
13th.
The close date is May 11th, so if you can't even do March 13th, we can keep it tabled.
Yeah, so one of my concerns is that because it's a text amendment, it has to be on file in the town clerk's office 10 days before.
Right.
And I would think this is a substantial change to our original proposal. So I'm not sure we're going to, I know my client would like to do it on the 13th, but I don't want any problems with the process.
Yeah.
So maybe we may take a week or so to get back to staff, work something. So 2 weeks would be the 27th.
Yes.
Right,
March
and like I
27th.
said, the close date is May 11th, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So, I mean, we could, if it's ready for the 13th, we'll proceed, and otherwise we'll go to the 27th.
Yeah, that means I'd have to have something for you to give the town clerk
By the
by
3rd.
Monday.
Yeah, it's a little soon.
That is pushing it, isn't it?
Your new deadline would be the 17th.
Okay, then
my
I
magic.
will entertain a motion to table this until such time you're ready to bring it back.
I make a motion to table public hearing 3115ZA.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, okay, all right, thank you. All right. We don't have any old business, new business, commissioners' correspondence. Anyone?
I have one
Go ahead.
thing, actually, the March 27th banquet
Yes.
meeting,
Yes.
convention, whatever it is. Are we actually going to have a meeting on the 27th?
That
Or do
was
we
something I
know
wanted to
yet?
talk about.
Okay. I don't know if it's appropriate at this time, but
Yeah,
I just thought I'd bring it up.
sure.
So, I actually investigated whether it would be possible to move the 27th meeting to the 26th. And although the rooms are booked, they're booked by, Historic District isn't here, and they rarely meet. So, I mean, we could probably do a special meeting the night before. I don't know how many of you were thinking of going, and I'm not sure how much money we have to spend on you. I'm not sure
Well,
what's left.
in the past, we've even paid our own way
Yeah,
to go, so.
so I didn't know how many people.
I said yes today, so I don't know if you saw the email yet, but
Pardon?
I said I would go
Yep,
today.
we got it.
emailed
Yeah, I got that, and I know Linda wants to go, but I didn't know if anybody else
There's
was
only
thinking
two
of
of us so
going.
far.
Right. But it is something worth going to if you haven't attended. It's a great dinner, and it's usually great speakers. So, and I think it's Judge Berger is the speaker. So
Yeah, he's
well
awesome.
worth hearing. So if we could move it to the day before, that would be great.
I think it's $70 or $80.
I wanted to go, I would be willing to pay.
I mean, I just don't recall, we've got a lot of commissions, and some have more money than others at this point, because
Okay.
others have gone to other
All right,
things.
well, let us know. And
So, can I have all the people that are interested in going at all?
if you want to go,
and-
I'll drive. I'll take.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
And Linda,
I'll be there.
George,
you gonna go?
Yeah.
Well, not if we're having a PCC meeting. Well, I don't know, that's, so if only 3 of you are going to be going, we still will have a quorum to hold the meeting
Okay,
on a
well.
regular night, so. This is,
And I don't know if Frank would be interested. I don't know if he'll be back and be interested in going. So
and I don't know about Vinny, he wasn't there last night either, so.
right.
I don't know
So
if he's ill.
I don't know.
Unless we want to move the meeting just in case, and because why should the people that are going miss the meeting?
Yeah, it might be, good,
Right.
especially if we're going to be discussing.
Yeah,
In-
we're discussing
in
this.
case
We just had. is
the-
kinda
I doubt
important.
you're gonna be discussing this.
Okay.
Okay.
It's very unlikely that we're gonna be able to get the wording completed by this next week.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 27th or
The
26th.
27th or the yeah.
We might be discussing it on the 26th or
Yeah.
27th, right? Whatever.
Right.
Okay,
So if we can move it to that Wednesday, I think we'd be better off just in case. And just in case we hear from
So move
the
to
people from the
26.
mall.
and so far, just 3 of you wanna go to the
Yes.
meeting?
What's the cutoff date of
Like,
notifying?
I don't know, you all got emails from Donna numerous times.
The email said Friday morning, 9 a.m.
Okay,
tomorrow.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
I don't know how
Okay.
firm it is.
Think
Well-
about it and let us know tomorrow morning, because she's gotta do the PO,
Okay.
and it's a big one,
All right.
so.
Just want to thank you for last night's little workshop or with Maria, which was great. And sorry for the people who missed it. It was very informative. I've sat through it before, but she always brings something new. So
Right.
that really was a nice little refresher.
Thank you.
And another quick question to staff. Anything about the Council of Chairs? Are we, anything?
I'll ask again.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Christian.
Yeah, I did send an email to you all this week about, I had found on the town website, thanks to staff informed me a couple weeks ago about the Thompsonville parking study. I guess 2015, there was a parking study commissioned by the town. It's actually not a very long report. I'm sure some of you are aware of it. It's new to me, so I just want to share and yeah. So I sent the link in my email. You could also just search the town site for Thompsonville parking study. Yeah, it's from 2015. So it's a little old, but I think can still be relevant to us today. There's some zoning recommendations in it, which we can take forward into our planning process. And there's also non-zoning recommendations, which are outside our jurisdiction. But just want to make you all aware, and you can check your email to see that. I also forwarded the transit-oriented development event. So I did find out, I mentioned that last meeting, I did find out that one actually does have a cost.
Yeah, $75.
Maybe it's more useful for staff to attend, since it's maybe more planning centric. But yeah, no, it's like a half day, seminar, and it has AICP credits. So it's like a professional development event. So I just updating you guys on it. We're all still, I think, welcome to attend if we want, but I think it's like $100 or $200 or something.
Oh, I do have something that I read today that is going in front of the House tomorrow about planning and zoning, is they want to discontinue on-street parking. And didn't they just recently say 1 car per 1 bedroom, 2 cars for 2? Well, now they're saying, no, we need 2 cars for studio and 1 bedroom. This is a new bill that they want to pass.
That they're discussing tomorrow.
They're discussing
One
tomorrow.
that has parking in it with, the
Yeah.
only parking reference was 1 line.
It was, yeah, but it was talking about the studio apartment needs
No,
more
it-
than
it
one
was the same.
space. It was
It-
like,
It was the same
and then they're
parking, but-
talking about square footage of an apartment. It's like all the things that they just changed, they're going back to. So I
Yeah,
just thought it was interesting when I was reading it. So we don't know what's going to happen. It was like, wait a minute.
That was more about just about anything else but parking.
Yeah,
There
but
was,
but
there was a plethora
of stuff.
Different things in
Yeah,
there.
and I'm like, you guys just changed this stuff, and now you want to go back to what we
Yeah.
just eliminate. So it was a little crazy, and I was like, all right, I don't need to read anymore.
So, I mean, accessory dwelling units was big in it.
Yeah.
And that was going to be, like, required for any single family.
Yeah. It was like, please, I couldn't figure out where their focus was by the end of reading it. It was crazy, so.
You and many people.
I just read it, and I was like, you just told us, no, we can't do this, and now you want to do it again? It was craziness. So just letting you know, there's stuff going on in Hartford that we have no idea what they're thinking. So go ahead. Director of Planning report.
Yeah. So I just wanted to let you know that the CROG got some money to do a warehouse study, and it will be doing study for not only the size and the uses, but the traffic and how to alleviate that within the CROG towns. And we were one of the main towns that was contacted to be on the advisory committee. So both Aaron and I were there yesterday, and it was actually pretty interesting and kind of fun. And I'll let you know more as I find out more, because it was our first meeting, so they were just kind of asking questions in general as to how many warehouses we have and what are the uses, and is it last mile or not, and things of that nature. And where are you finding the traffic issues with the trucking, and so it'll be interesting. So hopefully they'll come up with some great ideas for the region. That's really about it.
No administrative approvals?
None.
None.
Next meeting.
And then I see we have one application that came in.
Right, that is Public Hearing 3118ZA, application for a text amendment to omit footnote 1 under Section 8.122.1, notes to Table 8.122 in the Thompsonville Districts, 12 Alden Avenue, LLC, applicant Carl Landolina, representative.
Okay. All right. Any issues or opportunities? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
That's it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay.
8:39 p.m.
We can't abstain anymore.